Labor's promotion of Kiri Allan to Justice Minister is part of the government's plan to reclaim the narrative on law and order. To discuss further, columnist Brigitte Morten is in the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here.
So it's a portfolio under constant scrutiny. How do you think Kiri Allan has performed since taking over from Chris Farfoy?
So it's only been a couple of weeks, so, early days, and largely she's picked up on the work that, Farfoy did. She did a big legal aid announcement this week, which is about the budget, which mainly came out of budget. So, she really hasn't had that much of opportunity. We have seen her perform in estimates, quite early in the job. That's quite a big task to do, to appear before the select committee, and she was well across her brief, and she knew exactly what she wanted to focus on.
So what does Kiri Allan need to do to change the narrative on rising crime? The stats are there, those ram raids and stabbings in Auckland.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're probably going to take quite a different approach. She came in with a clear narrative that she was going to be, as she said, victim-focused or victim-centric, I think is the term that she used. So she clearly recognises that they need to change that narrative. But I think it can't be just about narrative. She's going to also have to look at some of the policies and what some of the achievements that they need to do before the next election.
What does victim-centric actually mean?
Well, that's a good question, particularly in the current environment where if you become a victim-centric, you're focusing on making sure that the people who are the victims of the crimes are well looked after, but you've got an increasing number of victims, but not the funding to address that. It's quite questionable actually what that means. But there's no doubt that there is a bit of a perception, I would say, that Labor has been much more focused on the criminals themselves. A lot of their policy initiatives in this space and across corrections and police have been based on rehabilitation, different legal system structures to address, taking criminals through different pathways, as opposed to going, actually, who are the people that have been most affected by this?
Will Labor still find it difficult to balance the tough on crime versus rehabilitation?
Yeah, this is always a really tough place for any left-wing party to really deal with, because they do see a much bigger role for, looking at the sources of crime and how criminals are treated, as opposed to taking a really punishment approach, which is generally what most of Middle New Zealand actually wants to see. If someone does something bad, they want to see people punished for that.
You also mentioned in your article Kelvin Davis and Chris Hipkins. They've got a part to play too. How do you think they're performing?
Yeah, so obviously we had the flailing Potua Williams in police, and she was seen as a massive weakness across the sort of justice team in dealing with this tough on crime perception. Chris Hipkins, very senior minister, seen as very competent, has been brought in to try and address that alongside Kiri Allan. So I think there's no doubt that he is going to try and push really hard. So far, he hasn't really kind of got across the line. He's had a couple of bad sort of panels and media interviews where he's gone sort of perhaps more on the attack than actually listening to concerns approach. For Kelvin Davis, he's been the Minister of Corrections since this government came in. He was the Shadow Minister before that, and had some really big hits as an opposition spokesperson, but hasn't really translated into actually changing really anything in corrections. And at the moment, he's overseeing some pretty big staffing issues there and a rising number of assaults on corrections officers.
Solid trio heading into 2023?
Yeah, it's probably the best that they can do, but there's a lot of pressure, I would say, on Kiri Allan and on Chris Hipkins to really try and right that ship a little bit around this law and order issue, because it's clear that National is going to go hard on it.
Is it an opportunity for National to come in too?
Yeah, without a doubt, and they've really picked up on that. They've got Mark Mitchell, he's a former police officer. He's going hard in this area because he understands what it's like to be on the ground and be frontline. So he's kind of got the ear of police along with also the ear of people worried in the community about their safety.
Brigitte Morten, thanks for your time.
Thanks.